So in this module, I'm very, very pleased to be able to work with you on the walk of life. So first of all, what is the walk of life? Well, the walk of life, it is a tactic, it is a technique, it is a sales method for handling objections after you have shown the customer the price. So let's review where we are. We're right here in the close. So you've had your setup call, went through the warm up with the customer at the home, did your transition questions, went through your inspection, sold the reference list. You had a chance to measure the job, shoot an inspection video for the customer, go out to the van and pull product, come back in, go through the company story, the installation presentation. You've picked a product to show the customer and you've worked through the product presentation. I chose this for you because you said, and the customer has now fallen in love with this product. You did such a wonderful job. The pre-close comes around and you ask the customer, so other than price or payment, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? And the customer says, no, it really just comes down to price. And you give your commitment statement. Well, I promise to do everything in my power to not let price or payment stand in the way of you getting the floors that you love and deserve. But listen to that pre-close question again. Other than price or payment, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? Notice the question is asking specifically price or payment, right? Is there something else that we need to deal with? Now, we're going to make an assumption as we move through this walk of life. We're going to assume for today, for this module, we're going to assume that you just got a positive pre-close. So the customer said, no, it just comes down to price. Or no, I got to fit it in the budget or whatever, right? So they've given you a green light. If you get a negative pre-close, we got to go down a different path. But if you got a positive pre-close and the customer says, no, it really just comes down to price, great. Now I'm going to show the customer the price and I'm going to ask for the sale. So that Mr. Smith, the total price for your project is $12,487. Now, you were able to get in touch with 3 of the people on my reference list. That's great because that gives you a $150,000 discount. And that brings your total to just $12,337. Now, I never know how people want to invest in their home, so I took the liberty of coming up with some payment options. 24 months would be $586 a month. 36 months is just $416, and 48 months would be $330 a month. Once the job is complete, and you are 100% satisfied with the work, would you be in a position to pay with a personal check or take advantage of one of the payment options? So what do you think they're going to say? What could they say? Once your job is complete, would you be in a position to pay with a personal check or take advantage of one of the payment options? Think for a minute. What could they say? Well, they might just flat out say, sure, I'll write you a check. Or they may come back with some kind of objection. What do I mean by an objection? They might now decide that, you know what? Yeah, it comes down to price or payment, but $12,300 is a lot of money. Or $330 a month, I don't know that I can swing that. Okay. So what do we do when the customer doesn't just say, oh, sure, I'll write you a check? Or, hey, if I can pay with my credit card, yeah, we can go. What happens when they come back with some kind of objection? Well, I'm going to show you that there's really only 5 types of objections. If I take everything that the customer could possibly come back with, I can lump it into 5 categories. And the first category is, it's something we call poo-poo. Well, what is poo-poo? You don't really want to mess with poo-poo. You certainly don't want to get dirty by poo-poo. Poo-poo kind of smells bad, right? And when you think about it, what can you do with poo-poo? Not much. So what is a poo-poo objection? Keeping in mind that 30 seconds ago, you got a positive pre-close. 30 seconds ago, the customer said, no, it just comes down to price. And now they say, oh, well, you know, I've got this fence project that I've been putting off, and I really need to think about what the cost of the fence project is going to be before I decide on the floors. Okay, time out. 30 seconds ago, they didn't say anything about the fence. Now, I'm not saying you can't do the fence, but something else has them rattled. Remember, 30 seconds ago, you got a positive pre-close. So now I ask the closing question. Once your job's complete, you're 100% satisfied, would you be in a position to pay with a personal check, or would you like to take advantage of one of the payment options? Well, we never make a decision on the same day. This is something we're going to have to think about for a couple of days before we do that. Hey, can you email that to me, and we can get back in touch with you maybe at the end of the week? Okay. When I ask the pre-close question, other than price or payment, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? There was no mention of we don't make decisions on the same day. So something else has them spooked. What is poo-poo? Poo-poo, it's a way of trying to push you politely out of the house. Okay? So there's a lot of things that could be poo-poo. They could say, well, I think we need to get other estimates. Well, I might need to have the painting done before we decide on the floor. Well, my car just broke down. I'm going to have to do something with that. Okay, it's not that these are lies. I mean, maybe they are, but it's not that they're necessarily lying to you. It's that they're giving you something that you can't work with. What can you do with poo-poo? Nothing. So we're going to have to do something else. All right, we'll get to that momentarily. What's another objection that somebody could give you? Well, they could, instead of giving you a bunch of poo-poo, they could just flat out come right out and say, 12 grand, you're crazy. Ain't no way. All right. So the price is too high. And they may even tell you, hey, I've had 3 other companies come through here, and you are the highest one by far. Okay, so it's a price thing. All right. So listen carefully, though, to the words, because the next objection, is the time objection. The one after time is a payment objection. Listen carefully to the difference between a price objection and a payment objection. A price objection, oh, that $12,000, that's too high. What would a payment objection sound like? A payment objection would sound like, I don't know if I can do $330 a month. And see, you're going to find some of your customers, and they might even be, it's funny because you might have 2 people in the same house, and both of them work out of the same checkbook. And one of them looks at the price and says, 12 grand is high. And the other one looks at the payment plan and says, $330 a month seems a bit high to me. It's really interesting the way that human dynamics work, because some people immediately their mind goes to the left-hand side of the screen and they think about the price. And for other people, they think about the payments on the right-hand side of the screen. I've seen husband and wives in the home where one of them is looking at the price and the other one's looking at the payment. And the way you solve a price objection is different than the way you solve a payment objection. And so as the salesperson, you have to be able to listen, right? You have to be able to listen and hear, are they objecting about the $12,000 price, or are they objecting to the $330 a month? And it's different. Another objection that somebody could throw at you is time. Now, be careful with this one, because a customer may say something like, can you send me the email? Can you send me the quote by email? I need a week to think about it. Well, that's not a time objection. A time objection is, this is something we can't do right now. I won't be able to pay for this until the spring. Okay, that's different. Needing a week to think about it is poo-poo. Why? Because 30 seconds ago, they said it came down to price or payments. Now they're saying they need a week to think about it. That's just poo-poo, right? We're not talking about the time to think about making a decision. We're talking about the time to actually do the project. So when you think about what does this objection look like? What does this time objection look like? Time objection, oftentimes it sounds something like this. Well, this is just something that we wouldn't be able to swing right now. How long is your quote good for? Okay, well, then I might ask them, when do you think you'd be in a position to do a project like this, right? Okay, get a little more information. I promised you 5 different types of objections, and the 5th one is an interest rate objection. So when people look at payments, they immediately assume a certain interest rate. Now, one person might assume that this is going to be 9.99%. Somebody else might assume that's going to be 24.99. I don't know. I'm not really that concerned about what their assumptions are. What I do know is that different people are going to assume different things for that. And you might hear something like, "Oh no, we don't ever finance anything." We just, we don't believe in paying interest. Okay. You might hear somebody say something like, well, I know the way you guys operate, and at $330 a month, I'm sure you got a ton of interest packed on top of that. Okay. Or what is the rate on that 330? What is the monthly rate on that? Okay. Now you're talking to somebody that's concerned about what the interest rate is. So when you hear the customer, once you show the customer the price and you ask for the sale, listen to what the customer says. Because if they give you poo-poo, if they give you price, if they give you time, payment, or interest, if they give you one of these 5 objections, and frankly, everything they say is going to fit into one of these 5 buckets. If they give you something that's in these 5 buckets, I'm going to show you how to deal with those. But the path is different for each one. So you have to listen. And why is it so important for us to understand this? Well, we want predictable results. Okay. We want predictable results. If somebody's thinking about poo-poo, what is poo-poo? Well, other estimates. Think about it. I got to talk to a friend, right? What are the odds of you selling a job if all they're talking about is, I got to talk to my family? How many times are you going to be able to land the sale if the only thing you can get them to talk about is, I need to get other estimates? And chances are your close rate is going to be 0. Okay. What if I told you I can help you move it up? So if you can get the customer to stop talking poo-poo and to actually tell you that the price is too high, if you can just do that. So, oh, I need to get other estimates. Oh, I need to talk to a friend. Oh, I need to think about it. I got a fence project. I got a roof project. I want to paint. The car's broke down. If you can get them to stop talking about that and instead just flat out say, the price is too high, you have now moved your odds of closing this to about 65%, just in that one little step. Now, if you can get them to stop talking about price and talk about time, so this isn't something we could do right now, you've got about a 75% chance of closing it. How about if I can get them to talk about payments? $330 a month is too high. 85% chance of success. And you guessed it, interest rate, you get about a 95% chance. Why? Because I can control the interest rate. Now, I'm not saying I have control over their credit score. I'm not saying I have control over whether or not they qualify for different payment plans, right? But I know that in my back pocket, I've got various financing companies that I work with. I don't know who you're working with. If you're working with a Service Finance, a Green Sky, an Advantial, an Aqua, a Foundation Finance, there's so many, Wells Fargo, there's so many of them that are out there, and every one of them has their own different programs, but they all have a 0% interest rate. Okay, so if interest rate is really the problem, we can solve that if we want to. All right, so what is the goal here? Well, the goal is, if somebody's talking poo-poo, I want to get them to talk about price. If somebody's talking about price, I wanted to get them to talk about something a little bit further up this set of stairs. So you can think about walking a dog up a set of stairs. You can talk about walking up this set of stairs to success. So there's a couple of different techniques that I want to share with you. The first one is, if you're stuck in poo-poo land, it's a little technique that I call bridging the gap. It's very, very simple. A bridge the gap technique just moves you from poo-poo to price. It does not guarantee the sale. It doesn't mean that you've got it in the bag. It just means that now you can quit talking about all the poo-poo things and you can actually start talking about price, which is something that you can handle. Okay. Well, once they're talking about price, then I can use a technique called the walk of life. Now, the walk of life doesn't start all the way back here at poo-poo. It starts at price. So if the customer says, oh, I need to think about it, can you give us a week? And you jump right in with the walk of life, it doesn't work. You have to get the customer to actually say that the price is too high. All right, so how are we going to do that? Let's take a look at the bridge the gap, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. Poo-poo. Well, my wife and I never make a decision on the same day. We always take 3 or 4 days to think about it, to pray on it, to do, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing here. Okay. You know what? I get it. My wife and I also like to take our time and just make sure that that we're making a good choice. Let me ask you a question. Is this more than you thought it would be? And just think about this question for a second. It's not pushy. It's not high pressure. It's just but it is gonna force the customer to say something about the price, right? Is this price more than you thought it would be? So keep in mind, let's put it in context again. 30 seconds ago, literally 30 seconds ago, we asked the customer the pre-close question. Other than price or payment, would there be any reason we couldn't get your job started today? And the customer said it just comes down to price. Now I've shown them the price, I've asked for the sale, and the customer says, well, we really need to think about something like this. Is this more than you thought it would be? Does this project cost more than you thought it was going to? What do you think the customer is going to say? Well, they might say no. They might say, well, no, we just really want to think about it. In which case, I'm going to respond with a very simple question. What would it take to earn your business today? But chances are you're only going to get hit with that 2 or 3% of the time. What are you really going to hear? Because the reason they're pulling back is because there's a price objection. Is this more than you thought it would be? Yes, it is more than I thought it would be. And that's what you're going to hear. I mean, it might be in different words, right? Once your job's complete and you're 100% satisfied, would you be in a position to pay with a personal check, or would you want to take advantage of one of the payment options? Gee, I don't know. My wife and I, we don't really make big decisions like this on day one. Can you give us a couple of days to sleep on it? How long is this quote good for? I can absolutely email this to you. And if you need some time to decide, I'm happy to give you that time. But let me just ask you something. Is this more than you thought it would be? Man, you ain't lying. I know you got to pay the rent, but you ain't got to get it all from me. Yeah, that price is stupid high. Okay, good. You know what? Now we're actually getting an honest answer. Okay. Now all this poo-poo, which was just a smokescreen, it was just there to try to throw you off. I'm not thrown off. You're not thrown off. I just want to know, is this more than you thought it would be? Yes, it is. What do we now have? Now we have a price objection. Now what can we use? We can use what's called the walk of life. And the reason that we use the walk of life is to drive the conversation to a winnable topic, to something that I can control, okay? It helps me identify a solution to the customers. How am I going to pay for this? So let's take a look. The first question, is this more than you thought it would be? Technically, that's not the walk of life. That's the bridge the gap question, but I'm just putting it here for context. These 3 questions are considered the walk of life. How much did you think a project like this would be? This is a way of understanding what the customer's expectations were. So up until now, I normally have not asked for somebody's budget. I'm not that interested. But now I ask, is this more than you thought it would be? Yes, this is more than I thought it would be. Well, how much did you think a project like this would be? Well, we've talked to 4 different people and they were more like $8,000 or $9,000. Okay, so now I'm understanding their expectation. They expected it to be more like $8,000 or $9,000. Well, now that you see what we do and how we do it, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? Notice I'm not asking the customer to defend my price. I didn't ask, can you see why this is the price? I mean, that seems like a silly question to ask, right? Because if they understood the price, they would have signed the tablet by now. But now that you see what we do and how we do it, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? You'll also notice that I don't say, can you see why this is a little more? Because frankly, no amount of money is a little amount of money. I showed a $12,000 price and they thought it was going to be $8,000 or $9,000. I mean, $3,000 or $4,000 is a lot of money. So just to use that word little look, it's not every time, but words matter. And when you say the wrong words, sometimes you can get away with it, but sometimes it can cause a problem like this. Now that you see what we do and how we do it, can you see why this is a little more than you thought it would be? A little more? You crazy. That's $4,000 more. And now you're sort of stuck. Now, that doesn't work out well. You just killed the mood. All right, so let's do it this way. Now that you see what we do and how we do it, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? Okay, now this is a simple question, right? Let's see what we can do to embellish this question. I'm going to leave the second half of this question alone. Can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? I'm going to leave that alone. But the first half of this question, I'm going to embellish it a little bit. Maybe this is a customer that has expressed to me concern that they've had bad experiences with contractors before because of the installation crews. Okay. You know, now that you see what we do and how carefully we vet our installers, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? See, all I'm doing is I'm taking a problem that the customer's had. We've already talked about the solution. I'm not introducing anything new here. We've already talked about the solution, but I'm reminding them of the solution, right? Maybe one of the things that they were concerned about is, you know, they had builder grade carpet and they were looking for something better. Now that you see what we do and you see the quality of the materials that we offer, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? Notice what I'm doing is I'm just taking the first half of this question and I'm modifying it to pare it back, to repeat back the words that the customer told me. What is the problem that the customer had? And I'm reminding them of that problem so that it helps to remind them of my value proposition. Now, I'm not going to go back through the whole company story again. No, all I'm doing is I'm taking the highlight. This was one or two big things that the customer was really concerned about. Hey, now that you see the quality of the materials that we use and just how carefully we manage your project, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? Okay, so my suggestion to you is this: modify the first half of this question all the time, right? Modify it for each individual customer. But the second half of this question, I'd probably stay pretty tight to these words. Third question: now that you've seen the price, how long would it take for you to come up with the rest of the money? Okay, this is a time frame question. And the key language in this question is the how long, right? How long would it take for you to come up with the rest of the money? It's the how long piece. My experience has been this: people that have been in sales and that understand sales have no problem asking this question. If you have never been in sales, the first time you saw this question, it felt like I was asking you to open up your 401k and let me see all your assets. That's not what this question is. Okay. You're having that reaction to it because you don't want to be the pushy salesperson. And I'm not asking you to be a pushy salesperson, but I am saying that if you really want to get the most out of the walk of life, the third question here, this last, okay, remember, this is not part of the walk of life. So this is question 1, 2, and 3. The third question of the walk of life, it is the kingpin of the walk of life. If you don't ask this question, it's not worth doing the walk of life. You can modify the question if you want to. You can reword it as long as you get a how long in there, right? Because the how long is the key. Let's go back. The expectation. How much did you think a project like this would be? This gets the customer to verbalize a number and acknowledge, or they acknowledge that they don't know. I mean, you might have somebody say, hey, I really don't know. You're the first person I've talked to. Okay, great. All right. How much did you think a project like this would be? This is just getting the expectation. The value proposition. Now that you see what we do and how we do it, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? This reminds the customer of your value proposition. Yes, I want to embellish the first half, right? I want to modify the first half, but I want you to be careful with the second half. Common mistakes. People will say, is this a little more? Well, and that you're trying to minimize the difference. And frankly, there's no reason to minimize the difference. If you're scared of your price, you got to get that out of your head. Stop thinking with your own wallet and present the price to the customer. Can you see why this is the price? That tries to get the customer to defend the price. Well, they're not in a position to defend the price. Just to ask, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? But embellish the first half. And then the third question, it is a diagnostic question. This is the key to understanding how you're going to solve the customer's problem. If you don't get the how long, you can't, the walk of life is meaningless. Okay. Now that you've seen the price, how long would it take to come up with the rest of the money? There's only 3 ways that the customer can answer this question. How long? They could give you a very specific timeline, right? They could tell you, well, I can't do it now, but I could do it in 6 months. They could tell you, I can't do it now, but I'm expecting to get a tax refund. So I could do it maybe in April. They may tell you, I can't do it now, but I normally get a bonus from work around February, so we could probably do it in February. They might tell you, I can't do it now, but I'm expecting to get a third quarter dividend check. Whatever, right? Whatever it is. Now that you've seen the price, how long would it take? They might give you a specific time frame like, well, I could probably do it after Christmas or sometime after the 4th of July, whatever the reason is. If they give you a specific time frame, a very specific time frame, and I would say it's less than a year, you could offer them, if it's, let's say it's within the next couple of months, your financing company might have a 3-month no interest, no payment plan. You might have a 6-month no interest, no payment plan, or a 12-month no interest, no payment plan. I tend to refrain from calling these same as cash because it sounds sort of cheap, but no interest, no payment sounds professional, so I stick with that. But if the customer says, you know, I couldn't do it right now, but I could probably do it in 3 or 4 months, I'm just going to go a little bit beyond that and say 6 months is the key. Now I've solved the problem, right? How long led me to a specific time, which led me to a very specific answer. So they say, well, I can't do it now. And they give me a time that happens to be 7 or 8 months from now. Well, 6 months isn't going to cut it. I'm going to go to 12. I've got a perfect solution for you. I could set this up so that you wouldn't have to make a single payment on this with no interest whatsoever for 12 months. That gets you past whatever it is. That gets you past your bonus, your other project. It gets you past the tax season, whatever it was that the customer said, right? It gets you past all that. And now I'm offering a solution that will actually solve the customer's issue. But I don't know I don't know how to solve it if I don't know the time frame, and I'm not going to know the time frame if I don't ask how long. So one way that the customer could answer the question is by giving me a specific timeline. This is exactly how long it's going to be. What's another way that they could answer it? Well, it could be a not so specific time frame. So you might hear a customer say something like, well, I don't know. You know, I work on commission, and if I have a couple of good years, it might take me 2 years. It might take me 4 years to pay off something like this. Okay. They may not give you that much detail. They might just say, well, boy, I really don't know. I don't know how long it would take. Okay. So they're trying to figure out in their mind where they're going to come up with $12,000, and they're trying to figure out how long it's going to take them to come up with $12,000. Notice what they're not doing. They haven't told you no. How long would it take for you to come up with the rest of the money? Boy, I don't know. It might be 2 or 3 years before I came up with that kind of money. They're not telling you no. Now they're starting to think the wheels and the math is starting to happen in their head, and they're trying to figure out how long would it take. Okay, great. So in an unspecified time frame, I'm simply going to go back and we're going to revisit payments with them. And we're going to take a look at the payment structure and see if we can't find a payment structure that'll fit in their monthly budget. They may not be able to do the mental math to get them to how long will it take me to save up 12 grand. But I bet they can figure out if 330 doesn't work per month, what would work per month? A couple $100 a month? We can make that happen. All right. What's the other way that somebody can answer this question? Now that you've seen the price, how long would it take for you to come up with the rest of the money? They could give me a very specific time frame. They could give me an unspecified time frame. Or you know what? They might just tell me no. Yeah, you know what? It's not really about the amount of time. I'm not paying $12,000 for this floor. You've been great. I appreciate your work, but I'm just not paying that much. Now what are you going to do? Well, you put together 3 options, right? Go to the next option. Okay, so 12 grand is too much for this hardwood? Great. I've got another option for you. Let me grab another sample board and let's see if we can't get in your budget. Okay, perfect. Or maybe you did the whole house and now you're going to offer less than the whole house. All right, well, the 12 grand, remember that covers the whole house. What if we were to do just the downstairs? Let's take a look at what that price would be and see if that fits in your budget better. So you see, I'm not done. The customer says no, but I'm not done because I've got other options that I've already put together. That's why we put together at least 3 options so that I have a strategy in mind. If they don't go for option 1, I've got somewhere to go for option 2. I've got somewhere to go for option 3. And I probably have in the back of my mind what option 4 might be. All right, what if the customer just flat out says the payments are too high? So we talked about up here, if they give you an unspecified time frame, and we say, okay, let's take a look at the payments, right? Well, but $330 a month was too high. What are you going to do to bring the payments down? Well, if we're talking about payments, the first thing you want to do is see if the customer has money for a down payment. The down payment will bring the payments down faster than anything else. So you might ask the customer, did you have some money set aside for a project like this? All right, so let's go back for a second. I'm going to take this all the way back here. I've asked the customer the closing question. Would you be in a position to pay with a check or take advantage of one of the payment options? The customer says, well, I don't know. This is something that we would really have to think about. Can you email that quote to me and we'll get back to you later in the week? You know what? That's great. If you want me to email it to you, I'll be absolutely happy to. But while I'm here, let me ask you, is this more than you thought it would be? Well, to be honest with you, yes, it is more. It is quite a bit more. Well, if you don't mind me asking, how much did you think a project like this would be? Well, you know, we've talked to 2 other companies and they were in the 7,000 to 8,000 range. Your 12 just seems really high. Okay, I get that. Well, now that you see what we do, you see the quality of the materials that we use and how we're going to manage the project from start to finish, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? Well, yeah, I get it. I mean, by far, you're the most professional person that came. I mean, the other 2 just scribbled something down on a notepad. Well, now that you've seen the price, how long do you think it would take for you to come up with the rest of the money? All right. And the customer says, well, I'm not sure. This is something that might take 2 or 3 years for me to come up with that kind of money. Let me ask you, did you have something set aside for a project like this? Well, yeah, I probably had about $3,000. Okay, with your permission, let's use that here in the down payment box and see what happens to your payments. All right, so I'm not going to grab the money. Here, let's take that. No. This is going to be easy, gentle. But if the payments are too high, the first thing that I'm going to ask is, did you have some money set aside for a project like this? And use that as a down payment. But what's the other lever? With payments, I've got a couple of different levers that I can pull. One is the down payment lever. The other is I can extend the payment terms. So the tablet shows a 48 month. It shows 24, 36, and 48 months. But I can go further than 48 months. Every one of these companies, every one of these finance companies has programs that'll go out to 72, 84. Shoot, I've seen stuff out as far as 144 months. Okay. So the other thing I can do is I can extend the payment terms. So you'll notice when you get on the tablet that if you need to take a down payment, if you want to put in a down payment, you can simply put in a down payment in this box. So you can type over this 0 and put in your down payment. So you might put $2,000 in as a down payment and see what happens to the payment plans. You can change the 48 months. Maybe the 48 months, in order to get to the payment that the customer needs, maybe you get it down to 72 months or out to 72 months or 84 months or something. Okay. So payments are pretty straightforward. If the customer needs to get to $200 a month, if they've got a $3,000 or $4,000 down payment and you extend the terms, what do you think? You think you could get it down to 200? Absolutely. Are you concerned about whether or not their credit is going to allow them to do that? Not at this point, I'm not. At this point, I'm just trying to figure out if we can make the math work. If I know I can make the math work, then I can go to the finance companies and worry about what they're going to do. But the first thing I've got to do is see what I'm asking for. Okay. All right. What about time? What if a customer says, well, this isn't something that we could do right now. This is something we would have to do later. Okay. So I'm going to ask the question later. Okay. So maybe they say, this is something we would be able to do after Christmas. Okay. Well, after Christmas, would you be in a position to pay with a check or take advantage of one of the payment options? And the reason that I ask it that way is because I might be offering them monthly payments starting now, or I might be offering them deferred payments starting later. So monthly payments, it could be in a monthly payment situation that we could go ahead and get started with monthly payments now. It could be that in a deferred payment situation that maybe there's like a 6 month promotional period where they don't have to pay anything for 6 months and then they start making payments. So it's important to understand what your payment options are and what your finance companies will allow you to do. You need to understand those programs. That's not to say that you're going to give the list to your customer and just let them pick one. You're going to lead this process, right? You're going to take charge and lead this process. But would you be in a position later, like after Christmas or after you get your bonus or after tax time, would you be in a position to pay with a check, or would you want to take advantage of one of these payment options? And then listen, you have a solution. You just have to listen for the right question to know what solution to offer. It might be that, later, okay, so after Christmas, I would just write a check. Okay, well, if after Christmas you're going to write a check, great. I've got a 3 month, a 6 month, a 12 month, no interest, no payment plan. After you get your bonus, you would just write a check, great. I've got a 3 month, 6 month, 12 month, no interest, no payment plan, right? So this is the same thing that we talked about before. If a customer says, I could do it in let's say 7 months, well, I'm not going to offer them 6 months. I'm going to go out to the 12 month one. So you could do this in 7 months, right? So let's play this out. I ask the customer the closing question. They say, well, this isn't something that I'd be able to do right now. Okay, when would you be in a position to do something like this? Well, I wouldn't be able to do it until, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 months from now. Okay, so 8 or 9 months from now, would you be in a position to pay with a check or take advantage of one of the payment options? Oh no, 8 or 9 months from now, I'd just pay you with a check. Perfect. I've got a perfect solution for you. You know what we can do? We can go ahead and get your job started. We can have this old floor removed and have you in a new floor within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I'll set it up so that you don't have to pay a dime for 12 months. That gets you past your 7 or 8 month mark, even gives you a little bit of extra time. That would work for you, wouldn't it? So you see, the problem solved. Now, that doesn't mean that the job is guaranteed. It might be that now the customer comes back with another objection and you got to deal with that one. That's fine. You have all the answers. What if they come back and say, but the interest rate's too high? Okay, well then solve the interest rate problem. Offer them a lower interest rate. The tablet, at the time of this recording, the tablet is set with a 12.99% interest rate. That'll work for you, won't it? Well, no, that's really high. I think I can get better at my bank. Oh, well, what kind of interest rate do you think you get from your bank? Well, the bank was offering a 9.99% loan for home improvement stuff. Let me ask you, if I could get this interest rate down to 9.99, could we get your job started? Okay, the problem solved, right? The point is, it's not that you are pressuring the customer to buy. You're trying to help the customer figure out how they can buy. See, if they didn't want this particular proposal, if they didn't want this option, they would have told you, no, I'm just not paying for that. And by now you're already talking about option 2 or option 3. But since you're still talking about option 1, they're still interested in option 1. It's not a question of if they're going to buy, it's a question of how are they going to pay for it. By the way, you can adjust the interest rate in this little box on your tablet. Getting to the next option, you have a customer that says, I'm just not going to spend that much. They just say flat out no. Good. Then offer your other options. All right, so let me see if I can wrap this up. Typical walk of life with the bridge the gap question. Is this price more than you thought it would be? Well, how much did you think a project like this would be? Well, now that you see what we do and how we do it, can you see why this is more than you thought it would be? Now that you've seen the price, how long do you think it would take for you to come up with the rest of the money? And then listen. If they give you a specific time frame, great, you've got a solution. If they give you an unspecified time frame, you've got a solution. And if they say no, you've got a solution. Just drop to the next option. It's what we call drop into a partial or change in scope. Drop to your next option. So see, it doesn't matter what objection they give you. If you get poo-poo, you're going to bridge the gap to price. If you get price, you're going to use the walk of life to come up there. But if they give you time, you don't have to use the walk of life. You're already talking about time. Find out at that time, how would you pay for a project like this, and offer the right solution. If they say, if you ask the closing question, they straight up say, oh man, $330 a month is too high for me. I don't have to go through the walk of life. I'm already at payments. So I don't need to get there. I'm already there. If I were to offer this to a customer and they said, oh man, $330 a month, that's outside of my budget. Okay, so what am I going to do to bring the payment down? Try to get a down payment. So did you have some money set aside for a project like this? Well, yeah, I had about $3,000. Okay, with your permission, let's put the $3,000 here and see what that does to your payments. That would work for you, wouldn't it? Nah, it's still a little high. All right, let's try one more thing. Let's try to extend the payment terms and see what that does for you. Now I know that'll work for you, won't it? Yeah, I can do that. Hey, welcome to the Floor Coverings International family. See, the beautiful thing about working with the walk of life is that you already have the answers to any question. You already know how to deal with every objection. But the walk of life is predicated on two things. One, it's predicated on you getting a positive pre-close. So what does that mean? You have to work hard in steps 1 through 6 to make sure that by the time you get to step 7, they're convinced that you're the right person, that this is the right company, and that they have fallen in love with your product. If you don't get a positive pre-close in step 7, this feels a little pushy. But if you get a positive pre-close in step 7 and they say, no, it really just comes down to price, now you're solving the how. You're not solving an if statement. The other thing that the walk of life is predicated upon is that you are trying to solve the customer's problem. You're not trying to sell. So what are you trying to solve here? You're trying to solve how they're going to pay for it. So if you have the attitude, if you have the mindset that you're trying to solve their problem, then the walk of life goes off like a hit. I mean, it's just great. It works beautifully. But if you find that you feel like you're pushing the customer because you're trying to make a sale, you're not really solving the customer's problem. And then this does feel a little pushy. But if you're there trying to solve their problem, you've got all these payment plans that you could possibly offer. You need to know your payment plans. But if you know your payment plans and you know what you can offer the customer, you can find a payment plan, or you can find an interest rate, or you can find the right deferred payments, or whatever you need to do in order to solve the customer's how problems. So I thank you for listening to this. One word of caution: do not walk into a customer's house and think that by watching one video that you know the walk of life. This is something that absolutely must be practiced, and it must be practiced regularly if you're going to use it. This is not something that you just throw out there, and it's not something that you pick and choose from. If you want to use the walk of life, use it, but learn it, practice it, and actually use it. If you think, well, I'll just use this question or that question or this question, you're liable to make a big mess out of it and actually turn people away. So my suggestion to you is, if you decide that you want to use the walk of life, then actually commit to it, learn the walk of life, and practice it. Know the payment options that your finance companies have for you. Know them like the back of your hand so that you can guide your customer to the right solution rather than trying to sell them a job. And with that, thank you for watching, and I wish you well in your sales.